Okay, thank you. As I say, I'm going to give a very broad brush on what are the stated objectives by the Commission on the review and those areas of the legislation that those proposals are likely to impact. So I think just to recall on the first, next slide, please. Or have I got it?
Sorry, no, I have.
That's fine. That's fine. I can... Oh, that's it. Good. Thank you. What is the Commission trying to achieve with this review? Well, the headline is to improve the availability of veterinary medicines. I think there's a general conclusion that the last review, whilst well-meaning and perhaps helping in some areas, probably actually took things backwards in some other areas, and the net effect has really been not very much change in terms of availability, certainly not in a positive direction. And therefore the Commission has stated that it wants to do a radical review in terms of simplification. And that's really the drive, administrative simplification, including authorisation procedures, with the objection to reduce the bureaucratic burden and to achieve a genuine European market, because it's recognised that because of the different national marketing authorisations and the different conditions for use in different member states, there is not yet a genuine European market. And that is one of the stated intentions of the new legislation. And finally, that there is a statement, and because the Commission statement came out during the work on the MRL regulation, in fact, but I think it has now been recognised that veterinary medicinal products are different from human ones, and there is a different needs, and the structure of the industry and is quite different between the two, and therefore really the legislation should reflect that. So just recapping, I'll go very quickly through this because I think many people are familiar with it, but it's undoubted the facts that the Commission commissioned a contractor to examine the actual cost of the administrative burden, and they found that it is indeed somewhere around twice as much relatively for the veterinary industry as it is for the human industry, and that therefore very much affects the viabilities of companies, particularly as they're generally smaller and are entirely market driven. I think you're aware of the benchmarking carried out by IFA Europe, I should say, which now covers a period of around 20 years and gives some very clear signals about what's happening to the European industrial base, which has been taken on board by the Commission in the drivers for this. And all of those factors will affect the availability of products, but particularly the availability of products in member states. So getting products into the smaller member states will be a key driver for the Commission. As I've mentioned, dealing with the fact that the European market is not yet entirely open, and there's something needs to be done because that is one of the main drivers for the number of referrals, which are costly and time-consuming for both regulators and for industry, those affected by the referrals. So there is a general agreement on the need to make it simpler, make it more efficient, and the kind of overall theme is as similar as possible, but as different as necessary. And that's particularly true from a regulatory perspective for those authorities which deal with both human and veterinary medicines, because they find it difficult to deal with different regulatory procedures. But there is a recognition that should not be a driver for maintaining similarity when there are objective reasons for differences in procedures between human and veterinary medicines. So looking at the authorisation procedures, IFA Europe has been pushing very much this 1-1-1 concept, single assessment, a single submission, a single assessment, a single authorisation. And I think actually that's found a very receptive audience in both the Commission and the regulatory authorities. But that doesn't necessarily mean only one route to authorisation. What it actually means, and I think that's been emphasised, is that for any one product, there would only be one assessment. And then after that assessment, it should be straightforward to make that product available throughout the European Union. Exactly what that means in terms of a practical model for authorisation is still under consideration, and we look forward with interest to see what the Commission will propose. The Commission has indicated that they have a strong desire to promote harmonisation of existing authorisations, to reduce the need for referrals and to open up the market, and has been very receptive to the idea that data protection needs to be adapted to the veterinary sector. So moving on very rapidly, looking at post-authorisation, again with the objective of simplification, the Commission has made clear that they believe variations are a clear target, an obvious target for simplification because of the amount of administrative burden that is involved at the moment for both regulators and for industry. So we can expect to see some proposals in that area, and we look to that with interest. And likewise with pharmacovigilance, which industry has been very vocal about seeing that as the kind of emerging problem and a kind of silently growing area of burden. So I think that we are likely to see some major simplifications proposed in that area, and again we wait to see what they are. And inevitably that will mean that there would be increased deviation between human and veterinary areas in the area of pharmacovigilance. I think that is an inevitable consequence of simplification, because if you look at the recent human pharmacovigilance legislation, that has done anything but make it more simple. It may have increased the improvement of the assurance of safety of human products on the market, but it certainly isn't simplification. So we would be looking to see what proposals the Commission will make in the area of simplification. And I think one other general thrust that they have made clear is that they wish to see a greater emphasis on inspections as opposed to administrative procedures. And again, how that will be implemented, but it is in the areas of both post-authorisation and pharmacovigilance, seeing an increasing role for pharmacovigilance inspections, seeing an increasing role for inspection to ensure that marketing authorisation holders are complying with their requirements rather than relying on large administrative procedures. So, as I say, I haven't given any details. I'm not in a position to, as they're not really aware. We've had discussions with the Commission, but they are preparing their proposals. Final area, no one at the moment could seriously propose to amend the veterinary legislation without considering antimicrobial resistance, as it is such a high priority. Both WHO, OIE, the Commission have it as one of their highest political priorities at the moment, and you may be aware that the agency is preparing the response on 4 questions related to the impact on human health of the use of antimicrobials in veterinary medicine, and that we're progressively giving advice to the Commission on various topics. We've given one advice on colistin and tigecycline, and we will give further advice over the next 18 months. So it is a very high priority, and it will clearly be reflected in the proposals from the Commission. They have outlined their general approach, and that would be that they envisage including within the legislation the tools for better control of the risk of antimicrobial resistance arising from the use of antimicrobials in veterinary medicine. But the actual controls that how those controls will be applied will be determined on the outcome of secondary legislation, essentially, which will be a result of risk management proposed from a variety of incomes to the Commission, but one of them being the guidance that we will provide them. And certainly that is a very, very logical and appropriate way to implement antimicrobial control when you take into account that the legislation which is adopted should have a 10 to 15 year life cycle at least. Therefore, you want to make sure there is flexibility in terms of how those tools can actually be applied in practice. And that's the approach that the Commission will take. So in terms of this workshop, we can certainly say that in their consultations that the Commission has done, the Commission has made very clear that SMEs remain a high priority. We've run out, the whole purpose today was to show exactly the measures that the agency puts in place to assist SMEs. I think the bottom line is we will be maintaining at least that level of support, and we hope that the administrative simplification and achieving a genuine market will then give additional indirect benefits, particularly to SMEs, for whom that administrative burden is proportionately has a higher impact on their ability. The Commission has indicated that it is considering giving a clearer legal basis to minor use, minor species and limited markets, and that would be very helpful to many SMEs as well. So where next? As I say, the Commission's held this series of open and targeted consultations from which we gather the themes that I've drawn together in this presentation. They've stated that they aim to publish those proposals by the end of 2013, and I think they do definitely mean that. We will wait to see if that can be achieved, but they have I know that they are working immensely hard to achieve that deadline. But even if that's achieved, this proposal won't be adopted in the current Parliament, so it will be one of the proposals that goes through to the next Parliament. So there was once, some people say, well, where's the hurry then? What's the point? But I think the Commission is very, very keen to get a comprehensive, clear set of proposals finished by the end of this year, maintain all the momentum that they've done, so that then when there is a new Parliament, they will have had a chance to start the consultation with Council, Parliament and stakeholders and be in a really advanced stage to get that proposal early into the legislative programme of the next European Parliament. But having said that, so if we are optimistic, the revised legislation could be adopted in 2016 with implementation in 2017, and that is relatively high speed for the way things work with legislative proposals, but it clearly means that we shouldn't put all our eggs in the basket of the new legislation, because we're going to have to live with the current regulatory framework for at least another 3 to 4 years. So one of the clear messages that we are receiving from the Commission and from industry as well, and we thoroughly endorsed from the agency, is let's make the best of the current legal framework, and that's really what's been explained today. So thank you very much.